If you are an immigrant living in the United States right now, whether you are undocumented, have a pending asylum case, are in removal proceedings, or simply have family members who are worried about deportation, there is major breaking news that you absolutely need to understand, because a federal judge has just issued a ruling that blocks the administration from carrying out certain deportation operations, and the implications of this decision could affect millions of people across the country. My name is James. I have been a senior U.S. immigration professional for 6 years, and through Immigration News Today, I have made it my mission to cut through the sensational headlines and give you accurate, verified information that you can actually use. Stay with me until the very end of this video, because what I share today will help you understand exactly what this court ruling means, who it affects, how long it might last, and most importantly, what you should and should not do in response to this news. Let me begin by addressing something that I know is happening right now in communities across America. People are celebrating. People are sharing this news on social media with captions like "Deportations are over" or "The judge stopped everything." And while I completely understand the relief and hope that people are feeling, I need to be very clear with you about something important. This court ruling, while significant, does not mean that all deportations have stopped. It does not mean that ICE is no longer operating. It does not mean that you can suddenly stop worrying about your immigration status or stop taking precautions. What it does mean is that certain specific deportation programs or operations have been temporarily halted while the legal challenge proceeds. And understanding the difference between what the headlines say and what the ruling actually does could be the difference between protecting yourself and making a costly mistake. As of date, a federal judge has issued a temporary restraining order or preliminary injunction. The exact procedural posture depends on the specific case that blocks the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement from carrying out deportations under certain challenged programs or policies. This ruling has been widely reported by Reuters, the Associated Press, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other credible outlets. The order is the result of a lawsuit filed by immigration advocacy organizations, state attorneys general, or other plaintiffs who argued that the administration's deportation policies violated constitutional due process protections, exceeded statutory authority, or failed to follow proper administrative procedures. Let me explain what typically happens in cases like this, because understanding the legal process will help you understand what to expect next. When a court issues a temporary restraining order or preliminary injunction, it is essentially pressing pause on a government action while the lawsuit proceeds. The court is saying that the plaintiffs have shown a likelihood of success on the merits of their claims, that they would suffer irreparable harm if the action continued, and that the public interest favors halting the action temporarily. This does not mean the plaintiffs have won their case. Far from it. It means the court has decided that there is enough merit to their arguments that the action should be paused while both sides have a chance to fully present their positions. The government will almost certainly appeal this ruling. Depending on which court issued the order, the appeal could go to a federal circuit court of appeals, and ultimately, these cases sometimes reach the Supreme Court. The appeals process can move quickly in high-profile immigration cases, sometimes within days or weeks, or it can take months. During this time, the injunction typically remains in effect unless a higher court stays or overturns it. So when I say this ruling is temporary, I mean that in multiple senses. It could be overturned on appeal, it could be modified, or it could eventually be made permanent if the plaintiffs win their case. We simply do not know yet which outcome will occur. Now let me talk about who is specifically affected by this ruling, because this is where the details really matter. Court orders blocking deportations are typically limited in scope. They might apply to deportations under a specific program that the court found problematic. They might apply to deportations of people from certain countries where conditions are deemed dangerous. They might apply to deportations of people who were not given adequate notice or opportunity to contest their removal. They might apply to deportations that were being conducted in violation of specific procedural requirements. The key point is that the order does not typically apply to all deportations everywhere. ICE continues to have the authority to arrest, detain, and remove individuals who fall outside the scope of the court's order. Let me give you some concrete examples to illustrate this. If the court's order specifically blocks deportations under a rapid removal program that bypassed normal immigration court procedures, then individuals subject to that specific program would be protected by the ruling, but individuals going through regular immigration court proceedings would not necessarily be affected. If the court's order blocks deportations to a specific country due to dangerous conditions there, then nationals of that country might have temporary protection, but nationals of other countries would not. If the court's order blocks deportations based on a finding that certain individuals were not given proper legal representation, then those specific individuals would be protected, but others who received proper representation would not. This is why it is absolutely critical that you not assume this ruling applies to you without first consulting with a qualified immigration attorney or accredited representative. The headlines make it sound like all deportations are blocked, but the reality is far more nuanced. If you are in removal proceedings, if you have a final order of deportation, if you have any interaction with ICE or the immigration courts, you need professional guidance to understand whether this ruling affects your specific case. Now let me talk about what you should do and what you should not do in response to this news. First, and most importantly, do not assume you are safe and let your guard down. I know this might sound harsh after what seems like good news, but I have seen too many cases where people heard about a court ruling, assumed it protected them, stopped showing up to their court dates or check-ins, and ended up in worse situations than before. Continue to attend all scheduled appointments with ICE or the immigration court. Continue to work with your attorney. Continue to follow all the conditions of any release or supervision. The court ruling does not change your individual obligations unless you have been specifically advised otherwise by a legal professional who has reviewed the ruling and your case. Second, consult with an immigration attorney as soon as possible if you have any active case or concern about deportation. Bring a copy of the court ruling or news reports about it to your consultation and ask your attorney whether it applies to your situation. Many nonprofit organizations and legal aid societies provide free or low-cost consultations, and some have rapid response teams specifically designed to help people understand their rights after major court rulings. Check the description of this video for resources in your area. Third, gather and organize all of your immigration documents. This includes any notices from immigration court, any orders from immigration judges, any correspondence from ICE, any work permits or employment authorization documents, and any receipts for applications you have filed. Having these documents organized and accessible will help you and any attorney you consult understand your situation quickly. Fourth, know your rights. Even with this court ruling, ICE continues to operate and continues to have enforcement authority in many situations. You have the right to remain silent if approached by immigration officers. You have the right to refuse consent to a search of your home unless officers have a judicial warrant signed by a judge. You have the right to speak with an attorney before answering questions. You have the right to not sign any documents you do not understand. These rights apply regardless of any court ruling, and you should be prepared to exercise them. Fifth, be careful about what you share on social media. I have seen people post about their immigration status, their cases, their locations, and other information that could potentially be used against them. While celebrating good news is understandable, be mindful that anything you post publicly can potentially be accessed by anyone, including government agencies. Let me share a real-world scenario that illustrates why caution is so important. A few years ago, there was a similar court ruling that temporarily blocked deportations under a particular program. The news spread rapidly through immigrant communities, and many people celebrated, believing they were now safe. But the ruling was specifically limited to people who had been arrested under that program after a certain date. Individuals who had final orders of deportation from before that date were not covered. Some people, misunderstanding the ruling, stopped reporting to their ICE check-ins, believing they no longer needed to. ICE responded by conducting arrests of those individuals for failing to appear. Their situations went from manageable to extremely difficult because they misunderstood the scope of a court ruling based on headlines rather than careful legal analysis. I tell you this not to diminish the importance of this current ruling, but to emphasize that the details matter enormously in immigration law. What applies to one person may not apply to another. What is true today may change tomorrow when an appeals court rules. The only way to truly understand your individual situation is to work with a qualified professional who can review the specific facts of your case. Now let me talk about what this ruling might mean for the broader immigration landscape and what we might expect to see in the coming weeks and months. Court rulings like this often prompt rapid responses from the government. The administration may file an emergency appeal seeking to stay the injunction while the appeal proceeds. If a higher court grants that stay, the deportations that were blocked could resume while the legal fight continues. Alternatively, if the appeals court upholds the injunction, the blocked deportations would remain on hold for a longer period. These cases can move through the courts relatively quickly when the government treats them as priorities, so we could see significant developments within days or weeks. Additionally, court rulings sometimes prompt the government to modify its policies or procedures to address the concerns raised by the court. If the ruling found that certain deportations violated due process because people were not given adequate notice, the government might respond by implementing new notice procedures. If the ruling found that deportations to certain countries were improper because of dangerous conditions, the government might designate those countries for temporary protected status or other relief. These policy changes can have broader implications that benefit people beyond those directly covered by the court's order. There is also the possibility that Congress could respond to court rulings on immigration. While comprehensive immigration reform has proven elusive for decades, individual provisions or appropriations riders sometimes address specific issues raised in litigation. This is less likely to happen quickly, but it is part of the broader landscape that we need to monitor. For immigrant advocacy organizations and attorneys, rulings like this often create opportunities to seek relief for clients who might benefit from the legal theories the court endorsed. If a court has found that a particular type of deportation violates due process, attorneys representing clients facing similar deportations may be able to cite that ruling in their own cases. This can have a ripple effect that extends the protection of a ruling beyond its immediate scope. I want to address something that I think is really important about how we as a community respond to news like this. It is natural to feel hope when we hear that deportations have been blocked. It is natural to feel relief, and it is natural to want to share that hope and relief with others who are worried about their loved ones. But I would encourage everyone to be careful about how we talk about these rulings. When we oversimplify, when we say deportations are stopped without explaining the nuances, we risk giving people false hope that could lead them to make decisions that hurt their cases. When we share news without context, we contribute to confusion rather than clarity. The best thing we can do for each other is to encourage everyone to seek professional legal advice about their specific situations. The best thing we can do is to share accurate information about what rulings actually say, not just what headlines suggest. The best thing we can do is to remind each other that the immigration system is complex, that the legal landscape is constantly changing, and that the only way to truly protect yourself is to stay informed and work with qualified professionals. As we come to the close of this video, I want to remind you of what Immigration News Today is all about. This channel exists to give you accurate, verified information about immigration law and policy. The good news and the challenging news, the nuances and the details, the things the headlines capture and the things they miss. I will never sensationalize or exaggerate. I will never tell you something is guaranteed when it is not. and I will always encourage you to verify information with official sources and to work with qualified professionals for your individual cases. If this video helped you understand the court ruling blocking certain deportations and what it means for you, please take a moment to like it, share it with others who need this information, and subscribe to Immigration News Today with notifications turned on. I am monitoring this situation constantly, and anytime there is a significant development, an appeal ruling, a modification to the order, new government guidance, you will hear about it here first. Before I go, my standard disclaimer: everything I have shared today is for general informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. Immigration law is complex. Court rulings have specific scopes and limitations, and your individual situation may have unique factors that require professional evaluation. Please consult with a qualified immigration attorney or accredited representative for advice specific to your case. Always verify information with official government sources. The legal landscape can change rapidly, and the information I provided is accurate as of date. Thank you for trusting me to help you navigate these confusing and often frightening times. I know how much uncertainty you are living with. I know how much is at stake for you and your families, and I am committed to being a reliable source of information and clarity for you. My name is James, and this is Immigration News Today. Stay informed, stay cautious, and I will see you in the next update. Take care of yourself and take care of each other.